I'm Robert Nichols, and I flipped over $50 million over real estate. And today I'm going to be doing a fix and flip masterclass to really teach investors how to scale. And why is this important? Because I see too many flippers out there struggling to grow. They get stuck. They don't know what to do. And I'm telling you, it does not have to be that way. There are proven principles and frameworks that I've used and others have used to grow seven-figure real estate investment businesses. And I'm gonna share that with you today. I'm gonna cover how to find deals, number one, especially good deals that work in any market. I'm gonna cover how to finance deals. I'm gonna cover how to find the down payment money, which is the hardest obstacle many of us face. My first deal, I was able to do it with 100% financing. I'm gonna cover how to manage a construction project, and I'm gonna cover how to exit for a profit, because this is super important. You can get all the way to the finish line and botch it at the end if you don't know what to do. So listen all the way to the end, take notes, because I promise you, what I share will empower you to get out here and flip houses and make money and really transform your life to find the financial freedom that all of us are looking for. Now let's get into it. Welcome to the Fix and Flip Masterclass. I'm Robert Nichols, and I flipped over $50 million worth of real estate over the past 16 years. And today I'm joined by Tim here live in the office, and we're gonna be talking about how to find fix and flips. That's the first thing we're gonna cover. We're gonna talk about how to run your numbers. We're gonna talk about how to raise money, how to manage a project, how to sell for top dollar, and the two biggest mistakes made by most flippers and how to avoid them. Once I teach this today, I promise you that you will definitely have a framework that you can leverage in order to grow your fix and flip business starting from nothing. This is what I've used to start from nothing myself, and I guarantee you that these principles work, right? I didn't make this stuff up. This is stuff myself and investors have been using for decades to jump into the flip game and to win in the flip game. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is how to find deals. And I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. You know, as you probably know, Tim, realtors and wholesalers are the first place you wanna start. The realtors who list the flips are the realtors who found the flips. I don't know if you knew that or not. But typically when you see a fix and flip listed, you'll notice that the agent who is showcasing the property, if you call them and ask them if they have any pocket listings or how long they've been working with that developer, they'll tell you, yeah, this is one of my clients. I sourced this deal for him, and I can definitely source deals for you as well. So I think it's really important just to apply common sense when you're trying to source deals. And then wholesalers. The easiest way to find wholesalers who are out here actually getting after it is to attend real estate meetups, real estate networking events, and those are really happening all around cities and towns around America. You literally can just go on meetup.com and look up real estate meetups. You can go on Eventbrite. They're hosting these events every month, and most of them are free. Some of them are paid. But at the end of the day, you're gonna go into an environment where you're gonna learn real estate, you're gonna connect with folks who are in real estate, and you're gonna source deals. One of my borrowers, Noah Jackson, remember Noah? Noah Jackson?
I don't remember.
Yeah, Noah, 22 years old, did his first flip, and the way he did it with no money down was he went to a real estate meetup here in the South Shore of Massachusetts.
Nice.
He found a wholesaler who sourced the deal for him. After speaking to the wholesaler, he's like, I don't have any money, but I know folks in this room got some money. So he decided to start reaching out to folks to see who wanted to JV the project with him. Found an equity partner, and he was able to jump into a deal and make about 40 grand on his first deal at age 22. You know what I mean? So if a 22-year-old can do it, no one really should be making any excuses. So I think that's a powerful illustration of the power of networking. Pre-foreclosures. So for me personally, prior to COVID, I'd say about 80% of my flips came from the pre-foreclosure list. The pre-foreclosure list is basically a list you can get for free from your local state, where it shows basically all the people who are behind on their mortgages, and it showcases that they're putting out a notice to see if they're in active military service. So it's basically called the service members list. That's by law, before a bank forecloses on a residential mortgage, they have to send a notice to the family to confirm whether or not they're in active military duty. And so because of that, it gives investors like myself and investors like you an opportunity to jump in and kind of see if they're willing to sell, right? You get notified that, hey, this person's behind, there's issues going on. Reach out and touch them. And so what I was able to do through that was I would send these folks letters speaking to how I helped other people prior to them. And I think the biggest misconception when people are out here trying to jump into real estate is they believe you have to kind of go heavy-handed and, hey, I want to buy your house cash. Like, that's it. But what kind of value does that bring? You know the person's situation. You don't know what they've been going through, right? You want to, before you kind of come at them hardcore with that, like the hard sales pitch. You want to really get to understand and get to know what their situation is and what their goals are. That's really what it's about, right? We're all humans out here. And so I think in our minds, you know, we want to be transactional, but in reality, it's all about the relationships that we build with people to help them get to where they want to be so we can get to where we want to be. And what I mean when I say that is, I'll give you an example. I had a guy, he came up on this list, and I sent him one of my letters. I'm going to show my letter to you quickly here right after this. But I sent him one of my letters. He called me. He's like, Rob, let's link up. Let's meet. I want to talk. Yeah, I want to sell the house. I go and meet with the guy, and the only reason he was selling, Tim, was because his wife had died of cancer and left him. You know, she was working at Mass General. She was like a radiologist or some high-level position there. They were doing well financially prior to her death, and you see that very commonly. And then he got diagnosed with cancer. So it's like she passed, she was done. Then he got diagnosed, and he was going through his own thing. There was no money coming in to pay the mortgage. And so for him, he was like, I don't really care, you know, what the house sells for. I just need enough money to be able to kind of make my next move and really kind of get my life back on track. His cancer ended up going in remission, and he was just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle back together. And so in that particular case, because it was a pre-foreclosure and he didn't really have much equity, we worked out a deal where I got him at least 20 grand. I believe it was 20,000 in that particular time. This one was up in Gloucester, to relocate and get a fresh start. And man, tears of joy, so happy, so excited. He wasn't about the house itself, because again, there was not much equity in the house at that time. So, you know, that's where I say it's about really understanding what people's needs are and what they need to kind of get on to that next chapter so that you can, again, provide that value. And then in turn, you got the house for a great deal. You know, it's a win-win. And that's really what it's about. I'll show you quickly the pre-foreclosure letter that I used that kind of really highlights this. So if you notice on this letter, it's more generic. This is a template that I'll share with folks out there. You can edit it as you see fit, anything in yellow. But it says, we've gotten our clients facing foreclosure up to $25,000. And so these are actually real scenarios where I've gotten folks money for foreclosure, pre-foreclosures for relocation. So it just basically says, dear owner, Tim Deal, let's say, or current resident, my name is Robert Nichols, and my team and I specialize in getting home owners up to $25,000 for relocation assistance when they do a short sale. Over the past few months, we've been able to get our short sale sellers $60,000 so far as follows. So Robin, this was one at Hyde Park. I helped her get into a property and relocate. I helped her do a short sale. I got her 20 grand. Kathy in Southie, I got her 10. Irene Lattimore, I got her 20K. And then Tanya and Randolph, I got her 10K. This one was actually one we ended up funding later on, further down the line. But total 16,000. My team and I purchase properties in any condition for development and management. We're interested in purchasing your home, but want to make sure we provide you with enough money to comfortably transition to a new home. Since 2008, we've helped numerous sellers take control of their finances and move forward with their lives on their terms. If what I've shared so far, this is the call to action, sounds like an option, please give me a call or email. Put your information in, and let's work together and help you take back control from the bank before it's too late. That's pretty much it. So you kind of see the sections of the letter, introduction, who I am, most importantly, what I can do for you and what I've done for others. Very powerful. Then talking a little bit about our ability to close, a little history, and then the call to action. Let's connect. Let's make something happen for you. And believe it or not, I mean, this letter performed super well. I've closed at least 10 deals I can attribute to this letter that went out to folks over the years. So that's it. And then I'll show you what that list looks like. So this is actually a pre-foreclosure list that comes up in Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts Land Court. And this comes out Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. So as you'll see, you have the city, you have the property address, you have the bank, and then you have the owner's name. So obviously, once you have this, you can take this person's name, let's just say Steve Schaffer in Dover, send him a letter, that letter I just provided, see what he says, and then that's it. And really, the hack, like the secret sauce to make all this work is simple, but when I send my letters, I handwrite the envelope and I don't put a return address on it. And it's crazy, but some of those people you saw on that list who I helped get money, that I've given money to and relocation assistance to, they told me the only reason I called is because you hand wrote the envelope and you didn't put a return address. I was curious. My curiosity got the best of me. And they're happy they did. You know, that's what they always say. They're happy they did call. But that's literally the game. Like when it comes to my strategy and the reason I say pre-COVID is prior to COVID, you know, obviously foreclosures were kind of a standard thing. They put a national moratorium on foreclosures during COVID, which is finally now starting to come off. And at that time, the market was more of a normal market. Right now, we're still an inflated market because there's low inventory, at least in our market. Other markets around the country, maybe not so much. But because of that, now a lot of these folks actually have equity. So the relocation isn't necessarily what they want, but at least the letter speaks to our ability to get them something, worst case scenario, which actually we're working with someone right now who is a pre-foreclosure and there is no equity in the property. So, but yeah, if there is equity in the property, then it's a whole different conversation. And really the shift is, how much do you need to exit quickly? Is that what matters to you, or is it getting top dollar? Are you looking to list with a realtor? You just want to have that conversation so you're not wasting time. And by having that conversation, you can now figure out if it's somebody who wants a faster exit where you can capture some of the equity. If they got, let's say, $300,000 in equity, but they really just want $100K to walk away and move on, you give them, let's say the house is worth $1 million, they want $700K to keep it moving, or 800, and you still can find a way to buy it for $1 million, or buy it for 8, and then put some work into it, maybe increase the value to 1.2. That's where it would make sense to do that. When it comes to the foreclosure auction list, we can just go to one of them now. I have mine. We'll go. So as you can see, have you seen this site before?
I think this one's different.
Okay, so this is on my website, but essentially we track this data every day, and as you can see from the list here, you've got the property address, city, town, state, living area, lot size, property type, auction date, assessed value, and deposit amount. So if you're kind of looking on the list, this is August 29th. We're looking at September going forward here on these dates. Let me see what else we got here. Why is that? Yeah, there's some other ones, but you want to go a little further out with these. You want at least 30 days because that's going to give you enough time to make an offer and potentially stop the auction and buy the house, get the payoff and everything else. But with this list, the way I target it is I check to see which one of these properties has equity prior to me going out and doing, making the calls or sending the letters. So that's really another way you can actually get really good deals that have a lot of meat on the bone, but there's urgency. So both of these two lists, these are the majority of the lists I purchase on. They started with distressed sellers. And that's the thing with distressed sellers, they don't have a lot of time and they really do need a solution. And so that's why you're able to, and this is why I target them, is you really are able to capitalize on their desire for a fast solution. And at the same time, these properties particularly have some equity, so everybody's winning.
So how do you determine how much equity?
That's the next step. So to determine how much equity they have, we'll just take one of these on the list right now. We'll start with this one right here. That's 5 Morseland Ave in Newton. So this is how you do it. Jump into PropStream. I'm going to put in 5 Morseland. Estimated equity, $641,000. Boom. It calculates it automatically. You don't have to do a CMA or anything. Wow. So we know that based on, this is what it's worth, about 1.4, they likely owe about 800 and change.
It calculates
automatically based on, correct. Yep. This is why PropStream is a powerful tool. And that's why there's a link below in the video for folks to be able to download PropStream with my affiliate link. They save, I save, everyone's winning. Yeah, so yeah, that's instant.
That's amazing.
Yeah, instant. So that's the game right there. The other list that isn't on here is probate lists. So you can get probate lists from the probate court or local family court, and that's where you'll see properties that people die with a will or without a will, but it still has to go through the process to get a license to sell. And when you see that, when you kind of log into the family court and probate court, I'm not going to do it today because it is a long, drawn-out process, but
that's just online. That's
online, all local. So we've got the Massachusetts family court. Every state has their own, and then obviously some cities as well, depending on how your county is structured. It could be county-wide, but if you start doing research on the local probate court, that's a really great way to source deals. So one of the cool things for me is I actually haven't sourced probate deals directly just because there's so many wholesalers that I work with that do it. I didn't have to do that. So I've got quite a few wholesalers that brought me tons of probate deals over the years. I've probably purchased, at least 7 or 8 probate properties over the past decade. So that's another great list to add here. That again, similar situation. People are under duress. People inherited a house. The house is in disrepair. and they just want a solution fast.
And clearly
Yep.
there's enough equity if you're getting it
Oh,
from
yeah.
a wholesaler.
Correct. Oh, there's tons.
And still able
There's
to
tons.
put-
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times with the wholesalers, I'll either structure it where I've structured in the past where fixed fee, like I'll hit you with 10 and let me jump in and negotiate. Or they tell me, nah, Rob, I need at least 20 on this deal, but I'll let you just negotiate the 20 into your purchase. And I've done it that way as well. Yep. But it's case by case. So it puts it on you as the investor to negotiate terms that make sense. So that's really how to find deals. So next we're going to talk about how to run your numbers. So your ARV is really where it starts and begins for fix and flips. I know this is a review for you as a loan processor, but ultimately for the folks watching, I think it's really important to understand that your ARV is where your deal begins and ends. ARV stands for after repair value. And with the after repair value, it's essentially you talking to your realtor to get an idea of what the value is. Secondly, learning how to run a CMA yourself. And then thirdly, working with a lender who also is going to verify that number. So that's 3 touch points to get an accurate ARV that you can believe in and run your numbers based on. And then what we do once we have the ARV is we plug it into our pro forma and we figure out what's the maximum loan amount you can get, which will allow you to decide how much you want to offer. So what I use for that, I got my pro forma template here. So let's just hypothetically say we have a property where you're gonna buy it, you wanna buy it for $500K. 500,000, your ARV is 750, and your rehab budget is $100,000. All right, our max loan amount is 525. If we have an ARV of 750, total loan for this particular scenario is 500. It passes the test. But ultimately, starting with this, we know we can go up to 525. And the down payment, what do we put for your down payment? 20% down. Let's say you want to drop your down payment to 10% down. Will it still work? It does not work. 25K too much.
Gotta bring 25K more.
Gotta bring 25K more to close. And so that's why it's super important to know your ARV. So how do we do an ARV? We're gonna do a CMA in here right now. I'm gonna show you how to do it in PropStream in real time. So let's take one of these properties from the pre-foreclosure list. We'll take 5 Poisset Street. Gotta pick some easy names out here. So for this particular one, to do your CMA, we're gonna go to details. And this is how you run a CMA in PropStream. So for CMAs, I like to go back 6 months. So we're gonna go to February 24th, 2024. And we're gonna go within a mile, not a half mile, we're gonna go to 1 mile radius. So typically you go 20% above the square footage and 20% below. That's why the square footage is locked in at this. I'm gonna expand it a little bit. I'm gonna go 3,000 to 6,000, just to round it out, all estimates. And we have, how many comps? 11 comps. And so let's see what they look like. Some of these are duplicates. So with PropStream, it shows you the public record sales and MLS sales. So that's why you'll see the same address twice here. And we'll go with the public record. So we have 99 Walpole. We've got 19 Colonial Road. We've got 9 Saddle Ridge Road. We've got 10 Woodridge. And these are all right in the same price point. We've got 40 Rolling. It's a little lower. That's an outlier because this is going to be a rehab. I'll kick that one out. I'm going to save these comps.
So explain why you take out.
Yeah, so outliers, if we were going to do a full CMA and go deep and look at the subject property, special features, we can do that later as we're kind of going deeper into the deal. I just want to see if the standard market supports this value. Dover's a luxury market. It is the wealthiest suburb in all of Massachusetts right now based on household income. I don't know if you knew that. And so as a result, I'm not trying to go to the top of the market. I don't want to be at the bottom of the market. I want to be in the middle. Now, if we were like more of a suburban starter home neighborhood, we'd be at the top because your rehab is a superior quality. These homes are all great homes in that area. They're all obviously luxury homes. So it's a different model. But you don't want to base your ARV on the top of a luxury market because that can change in a second. View comp report. All right, so here are the comps. So based on these comps, it's telling me that the price per square foot, and that's really what I look at when I look at these reports, is going to be between $334 and $516. So your average price per foot is $418.06, right? So based on that, I'll just do some quick math here. The square footage of the subject property is 4848 times 418.06, right? Times
like 1.3 something.
418, yep. It's telling me that I can get it to a value of $2,026,754. So we'll call it two-ish, right? Around 2 million, just a little 2.25. Let's see what the report says at the very end. Because the thing about PropStream, and this is why I did this first, I did the price per square foot based on the average sales price, is because PropStream does not factor your comps when it gives you the value. It takes all 11 properties that were on that list when it gives you the value. So you have to still do some math and some work when you run your CMAs and PropStream to make sure you're getting to an accurate value. So let's jump down to the bottom of the report. These are all the comps. It's saying 178, 1799. Yeah, so basically it's saying 1.8, I'm saying 2 million. I'm confident as a lender, as an investor, that I'm gonna get 2 million when I renovate and sell that property. Make sense?
Absolutely. Because in the beginning, you had to take out the low end.
Correct. Low end and the high end. And the high end, correct. So there is upside to be captured, potentially 2.1, 2.2, but we're not basing our numbers on that, especially in the luxury market. We're gonna base our numbers on what the market can support really as a standard luxury home. The other side to this, and this is where the nuance comes in, local realtors know the market better than anyone else. And because of that, you want to really lean on them and leverage them in their expertise in order to give you values that they believe in, because ultimately, if you're working with the local realtor and they're giving you a value to enter the deal, and they have a track record of selling homes at that price point, that's super important, they have no reason to lie to you. They want to win, they want to be a part of your success, and they want to keep that money train rolling. So you definitely want to find the right local realtors, and the best way to do that, really just look at the track record. And it's super easy. You can go on Zillow and see everything an agent sold. You can check Redfin, all these different sites, and kind of look at the properties that they sent you. You can ask them like, hey, can you send me a list of the properties you or your company sold over the last 2 years, so that you can kind of see clearly their expertise. To calculate your construction and rehab budget, that's the next piece, right? So we got the ARV, we know the values there. Now you really need to understand what the construction costs are going to be. And that's where you have to rely on the general contractor. And then there's also some other metrics that you can depending on your local market. And this is where your lender can be a great resource to you. When lenders underwrite deals, bankers, hard money lenders, private money lenders, we have an idea of what we charge, what we estimate per foot for renovation versus new construction. For example, on a very super light rehab in Boston, you can get as low as 50 to 100 bucks a foot, right? So that's a 1,000 square foot house at 50 a foot, that's 50K. That happens, right? You can see that. You do a full gut on a 1,000 square foot house, that could be, about 100 grand on a smaller home. You start getting into bigger homes, 2,000 square foot home, that's at least 200K. At least 200 is what it's gonna cost you. So rehabs, rule of thumb, for a full renovation is gonna be at least 100, 125 sometimes a foot, 150 a foot. And it can go as high as 200, depending on how extensive it is. Some of these bigger brownstones require just more touches, more systems need to be touched and replaced. New construction, statewide, we're looking at anywhere from about 250 a foot in the suburbs up to 300 a foot in the city. Cost of labor is higher in the city. Cost of construction and transportation costs are higher in the city. So when you get your construction materials delivered to your work site, they're actually going to charge you more coming in the city because they have to make more deliveries. Whereas let's say you're out in the suburbs, you got a huge lot, they can do way less trips during the course of the project, kind of just lay things out on your site for you so you can kind of work until you deplete the materials and then you get your next load. Some projects in the city, Tim, you got 2 or 3 loads a week versus a similar project in the suburbs, 1 or 2 loads a month, night and day. So those costs add up quickly. Correct, yep. So to recap, twofold, you want to run your numbers using a contractor, or you run your numbers yourself based on the price per foot, and you want to rely on your lender as a third option to help you confirm your rehab budget is real. Because sometimes you'll get a number from a contractor that's just outrageous. It happens all the time. Next on the list is once you calculate your ARV, once you calculate your construction rehab budget, then you can figure out your offer amount. Very important because, let's say the 70% rule says, in this particular example, let's jump into this pro forma, that you can spend up to $525K for your max loan amount, and you want to buy it, but you want to buy it at this price point, and you only have 10% down. This basically says you have to raise another $25,000 to do the deal. That doesn't make it a bad deal. It's just really about figuring out what your threshold is for what you're looking to do and how much you're looking to purchase. So I think it's important that you understand, your margins when you do these flips. You should be running numbers where on the exit you're making about 15 to 20% of the profit. Sometimes it'll end up going down to 10 once you factor your commissions and different things in. But in this particular case, after commissions and everything, profit margin is going to be about $64,680 based on 10% down. If you up to 20%, now you're up to $68K. This is an okay deal. You're going to make $68K. Smaller rehab, $100K. It's not crazy. 6-month time frame. If we cut the time frame in half, now your profit jumped to 83.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So now,
that's carrying costs.
Correct. Your carrying costs are really what's a big factor in your profit margin on these projects. So speed kills, as they say, or lack of speed kills. So you got to move quickly. That's really what it comes down to on the numbers. And you'll see once you factor commissions, it usually is going to end up being about 10% of what the deal sells for is what you make in the end. That's why you want to work on deals, if you can find them, where your gross margin is 15 to 20% of the total sellout, which is not always easy, especially in a market right now where there's a lot of pressure on the margins. There's so much competition in the fix and flip game right now. Yep. And this is why finding your own deals gives you an advantage, because you're not competing with the masses looking on MLS. And that's why the whole first section of this was talking about how to source deals, because that is such a key piece of being able to be competitive. And then the last piece is your carrying costs. And so how to calculate your carrying costs, we'll go back to the pro forma. You can clearly see this is based on a loan amount of $500,000, total loan amount in this case. But as you know, Tim, and as we talked about, this is the maximum payment, not the entry payment. So the way, and this is super important for all the flippers out there, you need to really understand and pay attention to this. There's something called Dutch interest. Dutch interest is when the lender charges you interest on the total loan amount, not just the money borrowed. Meaning, let's say you borrowed day one on this loan at closing, you put up 20% on 500, so your day one loan amount was $400,000. If you have a 12% interest rate, your payment's going to be $4,000. Regular, like the way we run it, the typical interest, money borrowed interest. If your lender charges Dutch interest, your payment's going to be $5,000 a month. And so you really want to make sure you're working with a lender that charges interest only on the money borrowed, just because that's going to save you a ton. So your expenses really aren't going to be $15,000 in 3 months on this. It'll probably be probably $4,500. So $4,000 the first month, $4,500 the second month, $5,000 the last month. So instead of $15,000, what's that? $13,500. So you're getting an additional $15K in profit based on how the interest is calculated. And then how to raise the money. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, because I hear a lot of people who want to get into flipping saying, I don't have the money, I don't have the experience, I don't know anything. So the first thing I want to say to that is, if you find the deal, the money will find you. That's something I've learned very early on in my career. When I was very, very limited in experience, my very first flip, I had no experience as a flipper. Somebody lent me $30,000 to jump into a deal. And again, it was on the strength of the relationship. It was on the strength of the team that I had built and the people I had around me. So that's also very important, where I talk about networking with folks who are in the game at these meetups and networking events. That environment, just by going in there and being associated with those folks, will elevate you, right? They say the rising tide lifts all sails. The same is true in real life when we go into new environments and if we want to get to new levels. So change your environment and you change your life, real talk. And so because of that, I was able to raise 100% of the money on my first deal, and so I've done it. I know so many of my students who have done it, my mentees who have done it, folks I consult with who've done it. It really comes down to educating yourself on the process and letting folks know, all right, I have a great opportunity, and you know how to present that opportunity. Again, talking the numbers talk, right? Talking that money. ARV, You know that's a fair value. You have a good team with your construction team. You got a great estimate. You got an all-star realtor who's going to get you into the deal. You've got an all-star attorney I didn't talk about that yet today, that is going to negotiate the deal and make sure the contract is sound and solid, review your loan docs. And now you have a package you can present to potential investors that shows you are diligent in your process, that you understand the framework you're going to be applying to the deal, and that you're going to be a good steward of their money. So I think that's super important for all the aspiring flippers out there to really understand that is really the first piece, is really presenting that package if you want to tap into the money. Because the money's out there, right? The money's out there, right? You just got to know how to find it. And it starts with finding an attractive deal and then packaging it in a way that it makes it attractive to investors to want to say, yes, please, let me get in. I want in on this one, right? You don't want to, if you're not begging for the money. And that's the other thing too, from a mindset perspective. People think they're begging for money or asking for money for deals, but you're actually creating an opportunity for you to work on their behalf and serve in a way that they're able to get a return on their money without having to do the heavy lifting and taking the risks that you're taking with your time in exchange for an opportunity for them to elevate and make more money while they're sleeping. Some of the other ways that you can raise money, number one is gap lending. So gap lending is basically working with a private lender that will raise capital for you for your down payment, or if you're stuck on a project on the exit. My team and I do some gap funding. We raise some gap funds for folks, especially if you're stuck and you need to get to the finish line. So that's something to be mindful of. And then on the entry, if you don't have the full down payment, let's say you raise some of the equity and there's a gap between how much you need to bring. Let's say you were able to raise 10% and you need 20. We will look at helping you with the additional 10. So gap lenders are definitely out there. I'm one of them as well that I can help with helping you guys on the front end of deals if you are looking to jump into a deal and you don't have all of the money you need. Gap lending isn't cheap. Super important, right? And so when you talk about pro formas, and I showed you the pro forma earlier that I use, and there's a link below for you to download it. With gap lending, you are going to be looking at spending anywhere from 15 to 25% on the money total. And that's not non-negotiable. Just because they have more risk, it's going to be usually in second lien position on the property. So to explain what that is, when you get a loan from a bank or hard money lender, they'll put a lien on the property. They're in what you call first lien position. They're the first lien against the property because they're leaning the property as collateral. And then the gap lender comes behind them with a second lien. So they're a junior lien on that property for protection as well. And they may want to put some junior liens on some other things, but that's kind of that next level advanced stage. But it isn't cheap. So when you run your pro forma, let's just say you need 20 grand for a gap loan. Your 20 grand on the gap loan is going to run you, at 15%. It could end up being 25%. That could be, 20 grand. That could be 5 grand. So just be mindful of it. Throw it in your pro forma to make sure it still works. Right? Makes sense. Yep. And you're able to jump in and make some good money there. Cool. And then the second one, as we talked about, is equity investors, getting equity investors. So the first deal I did, I raised money. I think we got 30 grand from him, and we gave him, it was kind of crazy to think about it now, 50% on the money. Different times, right? This is when the market had crashed. This was in 2008 when we bought the first one. It was 2009. 2009, we got the first one. Small little flip, but 50% on the money. So we raised 30 to buy a house that was like 115K, and we gave him 15,000. We still had made 60K profit though.
Yeah, to put your money in the stock market.
Correct, yeah.
You got a 50% return.
Yeah, man, instant. So,
They're in heaven.
yeah, but at that time, money was expensive because there wasn't any money on the streets. So investors hear 50%, I'm like, oh yeah, sure, I'm all in. So absolutely. Nowadays though, you should expect to pay, and this goes up and down. Like during COVID, investors were looking for about 10% on the money. Just because there wasn't many vehicles for them to be able to get risk-free capital for more than 2%. So they're like 2% is nothing. So you offer them 10, they were incentivized. Now that rates have come up, so on some of these treasury yields and the way people kind of invest money in some of the bonds, they're getting about 5%. They are open to 15% for private money equity, raising equity for your deal. So it fluctuates. It's not a fixed thing. And I think it's super important for people to know that out there. Because I think in people's minds, it's like, oh, I got money for 10% last time. It's like, yeah, but the climate changed. And you just got to stay on top of what's happening with the Fed, with the economy, with rates, because it affects everyone, even on the hard money side. You see it now. We went up to as high as 13. Now we can't sell 13, man. You can't give it away. You got to drop down to 11. Now we're at 11 and a quarter, right? And I remember when it was 8 and 9 during COVID. So it really comes down to the climate, the market, relative to what you need to offer these investors to invest with you. That's a fixed return. You also have an equity return, and that's where they jump into the deal for a percentage of the deal. So it could be something where they say, all right, I'll give you all the money for the deal, but I want 50% of the deal, 50-50. I spoke to a luxury developer 2 weeks ago, and he shared with me that the way he structures his deals, he buys all of his properties, usually buy-ins at about $1 million. He raises $700,000. And so that $700,000 that he raises is utilized for his down payment, carrying costs, whatever cash he needs to get in the deal, and then he'll get $300K from the bank plus the rehab budget, right, or the construction budget. Usually he does tear downs and new builds in like Newton or Brookline. Yeah. And so in those markets, if you're jumping in at $1 million, you're gonna spend at least another $1 million to build that house. So he'll borrow one, he'll put up 7, he'll borrow 1.3, right? So he'll be in the deal for 2, and then he'll sell it out at 3. Right. Yeah, or like 2.7, 2.8, 2.7, 2.8. He says. Yeah, he said usually he makes about $1 million. You know, after commissions, call it 900. The investors will get 450 on the 700, and he'll get 450, or they'll get 500, and he'll get 500. But he splits the profit down the middle, and you know they're not doubling their money, and usually those projects take about 2 years. So you know they're probably getting 30%, 40% on their money per year if you look at it from that perspective, which is great. It's a great structure, you know, and so that's why it really comes down to you what scale you're at, what market you're in, what your experience level is, how you structure this. For me, I'm similar. If someone puts up all the money and I jump into a deal, I'm doing it 50-50 equity just because of my experience. I bring a lot to the table. I got the team, I got the experience, we got the capital.
Money is one thing, but the execution.
Exactly, and so that's what we do typically. This is really where I think a lot of investors miss the mark and how you can scale. Once you become a proficient real estate investor and operator, the number one skill set you must develop is raising capital, because that will basically dictate how big you get or how small you stay, one or the other. So you really need to double down on being able to raise money to really scale the business. Financing the purchase and the construction. So we talked about the 70% rule already in the pro forma. Banks and hard money. Clear differences. I'm not going to go crazy on this, but banks require tax returns. They require bank statements. They require, you know, credit. They require past experience. Yeah, with the bank statements, liquidity. Yeah, so they require a lot. Whereas hard money, we're really just looking at the hard asset. Yes, we do run a credit report and a judgment check just to make sure you're not a fraudster. But ultimately, in the hard money world, regardless of credit, there's an option for you. You might have to pay a little bit more, but there's an option for folks to get access to hard money. Because again, we're looking at the asset. As long as our max loan amount doesn't exceed 70%, in most cases, we'll do the deal. So when it comes to time to close with banks and hard money, banks typically need at least 30 days, 40 days, whereas hard money, we can close in as fast as 7 days, call it, to be safe. Once we have the title, appraisal, and everything, we need to get it done. So how to manage a project. So let's jump into the project management side. Typically, the first thing you need to do is find a good GC. And how do you do that, right? So there's 2 key ways that we found the best subcontractors and contractors that we work with. It's being out in the real world, looking at real work, going on job sites that we like the way it's looking from the outside and asking who's in charge here and talking to these folks, and then vetting them online, right? So you go vetting them in the real world as well. So you see that project, you go to other projects, you literally walk the site and you look for defects on the property. Look for how's the wood on the corners, you know, how's the paint job? Did they paint over a wall that's not sanded? You see that? I saw that the other day at the property. So you really just are kind of looking for defects that are obvious. Even if you aren't a trained contractor, you know something's crooked, right? It's just basic stuff, right? If it looks good on the surface and you get to see 2 or 3 of their projects, look online to see if they also have reviews of their work. Check to see if, you know, they got complaints. If they've got people who are saying these guys are awesome, like that is really how you're going to be able to vet contractors. Yes, you can go based on referrals, but even if you get a referral, you must do this as well. You got to go see that work. They could be the nicest guy, meet with them, talk to them, but I made that mistake too many times in my career where I hired a guy before looking at the body of work and other projects they've been involved with. So I think that is something that's super important for folks to really tap into, especially in today's day and age. We have Yelp, you've got Houzz, HOUZZ.com, and so many other websites where you have folks who are able to review contractors and speak of their experiences with folks. When you're ready to scale, Project manager. So the thing I've learned over the years, you want some redundancy, meaning you want to have more people than you need in the business. And when you're first starting out, you obviously can't afford that, right? So that makes sense. But as you're looking to scale up, you're definitely going to need support. So that the way I'm structured now and some of my students are structured is that we have GCs that we hire to manage the project, the jobs under their license. But we may have, let's say we have 10 projects going on. We'll have maybe 2 or 3 GCs that manage between the 10 projects. So one guy will have 3 jobs, and then another guy will have 3 jobs, that's 6, and then the last guy will have 4 jobs. In addition to that, we'll have a project manager that works directly for us that goes around and oversees those GCs. And then we jump in as well to assist as needed, but it doesn't require us to be there every day because that project manager, he or she is our eyes, our ears, and they're there making sure the project is progressing. If there's situations that require us to be involved, they're looping us in quickly. And we have one point of contact that is now the manager of everyone else. And that's really how you can structure your fix and flip business to scale. More advanced, but I think it's worth noting because too many times people have success at the first level of flipping. They'll do 1 or 2 flips with the same crew. Awesome, fantastic. Take that same crew and try to do 10, try to do 5, done. Can't handle it because it's not built for scale. Consistent communication and presence. Super important with fixing and flipping. Consistent communication and a presence on the job site. You must be communicating, or someone on your team needs to be communicating with the general contractors daily. There are design changes that happen in the field. There are things that happen where stuff is delayed. There's things that need to be ordered with a certain amount of lead time. So there's a lot of communication that is required every single day. You got to be flexible because it doesn't always go according to plan. People don't always do the job they say they're going to do. And so that's where, just keeping folks accountable, being in the field and working with folks is super, super important. But yeah, so in addition to project manager is draw requests. How do you manage the flow of the money? When it comes to managing the cash flow on the project day to day, the draw request gets submitted to the lender. Obviously, you have a preset budget, but excuse me, in some instances, things will go over budget. And so as a result of that, you've got to find a way between, maybe adjusting your budget first, maybe taking something from another line item and moving it to another. Correct. To make it work, or you need an increase.
Starting with a contingency.
Correct, have the contingency, great point. with your draws and with your construction budget, you should have a contingency in there so that with the contingency, you do have a little bit of a cushion to move stuff around. And if you exhaust that, now you can move stuff from one line item to another. If you don't have additional capital that you can tap into, or you can't move things around and you've exhausted your contingency, then you can come back to us to get a loan increase, or you can look to have a gap lender jump in and help you get the deal funded. But very important that the money is managed well on a day-to-day basis and that you immediately get ahead of any issues that come up if you see a shortfall or a massive change on the job. That's going to require additional capital. And then performance-based contracts, pleasure or pain, right? A lot of people ask me this when it comes to negotiating with your contractor, right? When it comes to negotiating with the contractors, folks really sometimes don't realize that, they have these contracts where they get penalized. And I've just seen it time and time again. The contractors, if they go over time, if they go over budget, there's a penalty. In my experience, it just makes the relationship harder. It makes the relationship less focused on the solutions. And now people are trying to point the finger. You did it. No, you did it. No, you said. No, he said. No, she said. Like all of that stuff comes up and really doesn't allow for the energy to be really where it needs to be, and that's getting the project done. So for me, I'd rather negotiate a lower contract and reward them for performance, right? What do they say, the stick or the carrot? I'd rather give them the carrot, not the stick. Just to really incentivize them to finish faster, and they can get a little piece of the equity, right? Because if they're finishing faster, they're saving me money on my carrying costs. Yeah. They're saving me time. They're allowing me to get to a better place quicker so I can take capital in and do more deals. So I would recommend a performance-based contract based on pleasure and not pain. I'd love to see what people think about that out there, but in my experience, this is a much better way to go. Then the last thing I want to talk about is how to sell for top dollar. Number 6 is really a bonus, but how to sell for top dollar. So the first mistake I see flippers making is they design the properties for them to live in it, right? Like this ain't cribs. This ain't pimp my house. Like this is, I'm in real estate. I'm building a house for members of the community, for folks who live in an area, and you have to respect the taste and desires of the buyers in a given area. You have to respect it, because if you don't respect it, they will not respect you and they will not pay you. Very important. And so when it comes time to designing your flip, there are two primary strategies that I see people implement. Number one, they lean on the realtor, right? The realtors who are in that area, especially if you have a good local realtor with experience in the neighborhood, they're selling all the houses. They know what these buyers want. They know what the layout needs to have. They know what kind of tile colors they like and the finishes and everything else throughout the property, what the kitchen should look like. Listen to them, trust them, and let them advise you, because it will serve you. Your goal is not to make a house that you love and like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It's my work of art. This ain't art. This is finance. And so when it comes to finance, you got to make decisions that are going to pay the bills in the end. And so that's where having a realtor advise you can be extremely powerful and useful. Second to that, and again, depends on scale. This is when you first start out. As you scale up, you need to hire a designer. No way, ifs, ands, or buts about it. Professional designers, or someone on your team has that skill set. Those are the people you want to be dealing with, because again, they will allow you to create a product that people are going to enjoy and that the market is going to receive well and pay you. So hire a designer sooner rather than later, especially as you're scaling. When it comes to evaluating the property, right, the values, we talked about it at the very beginning, and I'm going to talk about it here again. Trust your realtor, right? I talked to a borrower yesterday, one of our borrowers. He just finished a house here in Massachusetts. He wants to list the house for $850. He asked me, Rob, what do you think? Professional opinion, right? I'm not a local realtor that I market. It's in the South Coast. And I told him, I said, man, I looked at the comps. I looked at everything around. There was a house identical to his, almost identical, right? Very similar style, square footage, within a mile of his. They listed at $850 and it sat on the market for 60 days. And he listed it at $850. And he's overdue. He's on a loan extension right now. And his interest per month is like $4,000 a month. Like it's just burning through cash. It's like, actually, I think it's ended up being like $5,000 a month with the interest and the points and everything else. And I'm like, dude, don't waste time. I said, you want to sell it quickly. You can list it at $829, $824, something like that, around $825. It should go relatively quick. If you want to create a bidding war and move it faster, list it at $799. And his house is not as nice as the other one because he doesn't have central AC. He doesn't have the landscaping. Like his landscaping is just grass. It's not, it's not the greatest. And so, that's an example where emotionally he's like, well, that one was at $849 and they got an offer under contract, didn't sell yet. I want to go to the same price because my house is pretty much the same thing, but it really isn't the same thing. And so we'll see what he ends up doing. But his emotions are leading him to want to go higher because he's been in the project for a long time. He wants to make as much as possible, and I get it. But the market is the market. And so that's really where I would say lean on your realtor, trust your realtor. If you don't like the first realtor's opinion, get a second opinion. It's like going to the doctors. Same thing, right? You don't like the first opinion, find another one. One of my favorite strategies to use is called an open house funnel. And I've been doing this for years, and it bodes really well, especially for flips. One of the things about doing flips in markets where most of the housing inventory is old and was built in like the 1900s is that when you throw a fresh product out there into the marketplace, people love it. People really enjoy it and appreciate it. And so what happens is people want to get in immediately, but you don't let them get in, right? It's like, at a nightclub, you ever see the lines all the way out to the front? Yeah, they stall them because they want to show, there's a buzz here, there's something happening here, there's something special going on inside. That's the same strategy with the open house funnel. What I do is, what I recommend, and they've done studies about this, is that a home gets listed on a Wednesday. You do not allow anyone in. No showings, no offers accepted, no offers even entertained prior to the first open house on Saturday. Then we do another open house on Sunday. And in the listing, you put a very specific offer deadline. So with the offer deadline, it'll say offers due by Monday, let's say at 5 p.m. It really allows the folks who are interested in the house to kind of get anxious, a little antsy. It creates a little bit of a buzz. So that's really where I would say you're able to capitalize on that by allowing everyone to kind of come at the same time, but most importantly, the offers coming in around the same time. And when the offers coming out around the same time, you're able to say, hey, we got multiple offers, highest and best due within 24 hours. And that's how you create a funnel where all those offers are kind of forced to compete against each other. Negotiating the offer, walk away, and incentives. So One of the things that I think people get nervous about is if you get an offer that isn't quite what you like, is close, but it isn't ideal, I'm never afraid to let the buyers walk away from the table. Meaning, let's say I have a house on the market, and this has happened many times, listed it for 500. We get an offer, we do the open house funnel strategy, we get a couple offers, 450, 475, and we really know this house is worth at least 495, at least 490, 495. And no one's quite coming up when we do highest and best. We'll directly engage with, let's say, the 475 buyer and say, hey, if you come to 490, we'll give you the house. And the buyer says, nope, I'm stuck at 480, right? Now, at the end of the day, we'll probably take the 480. But one of the strategies that I've used to make sure that we don't leave any money on the table is saying, nope, sorry, we'll just wait. We'll just walk away. No problem. Thank you and appreciate it. And many times, 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and offer just a little more, 5 more thousand, and they will say, all right, we'll take it. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting psychology when it comes to negotiating sales. It's one of those things where kind of the law of attraction, you're able to attract, and get more versus trying to chase and force and fight. And so I've learned that over the years. And then the best part about it is if they don't come back in a couple of days and you're willing to take the 480, you can go back to them. There's no reason for you not to go back. So one quick thing I forgot to mention is the incentive in Section 5. The incentive when it comes to selling is simple. Number one, you want to offer a competitive commission. And I always like to share the story or example of if you and your neighbor are selling an identical home, your house is identical, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, same setup. Your neighbor's is a 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, same setup. And they're offering a $20,000 commission and you're offering a $5,000 commission. Take a guess which house the agents are going to show first. Obviously the one offering the higher commission because they make more money from the same amount of work. And this is where incentive comes into play. It's very important that you incentivize agents to show your home versus the competition. So offer at least a 2% commission, if not more if you can afford to. I promise you it'll help you sell faster. And then the second piece is offering some type of credit towards the buyer's closing costs. If the buyer's willing to pay a little bit more in exchange for you covering closing costs, let's say your asking price is $500, but the buyer comes in at $510 and asks for a $10,000 credit to offset their expenses, to buy down their rate, whatever it may be, it is really important that you consider that as an incentive to help those buyers out to ensure that you get the money you want or the number you want and get your property sold quickly. Because ultimately you want to sell the house as quickly as possible to keep it as profitable as possible. And now for the bonus round, 2 biggest mistakes that I think most flippers make, especially when they first start out. And this is why many flippers start and never really make it. Number one, emotionally, they overestimate the ARV. We see that time and time again. Yes. And they don't have a lender that is willing to correct them. Truth, right? You didn't build the right team. So be realistic with your ARV. Trust your team. Trust the realtors. Trust the comps. Trust the numbers. The numbers never lie, right? Numbers never lie. And then the other piece is underestimating the cost of construction. I've done this myself. Like I'm more on this side. I don't overestimate my ARVs. I've never been that guy. I've always usually underestimate. I'm conservative there, but I underestimate the construction costs. I always think we can find a way to squeeze it in the budget. Dangerous. I've taken some losses doing that. That's not ideal, not a way to really build your fix and flip business. And I appreciate everybody who watched this all the way to the end. I hope that you gained tremendous value from it. If you are looking to fix and flip, if you started fixing and flipping and you got stuck, hit me up. You can go to rlncompanies.com. I've got my mentorship program that you can sign up for to see if you qualify to be a part of it. I've got my monthly challenge that I do that really takes people on the journey on how to build wealth in real estate by using the 4 levers of wealth creation. And I definitely just want to be a resource to you guys out here. I've got a ton of free content I put out consistently, got a free community on Facebook, and I'm really excited to connect with you. Thanks for tuning in and stay tuned for more.